Very shocking news. BTS's Jin mention. Idols shouldn't date. Fans are shocked. In the high-velocity world of global entertainment, where a single sentence can be weaponized within seconds, the line between fact and fabrication often blurs. This week, Seok-jin, known globally as Jin of BTS, found himself at the center of a digital storm that highlighted both the fragility of online translation and the fierce protectiveness of the BTS fandom, known as ARMY. As the anticipation reaches a fever pitch for the group's monumental return, a mistranslated clip threatened to cast a shadow over the festivities, only to be dismantled by the very community that knows him best. The controversy began with a snippet taken from a recent Weverse live stream. In the circulated video, subtitles were superimposed over Jin's speaking voice, falsely alleging that he declared idols should not be allowed to date. The mistranslation went further, attributing a quote to him that suggested idols must take the feelings of the fans into consideration at the expense of their personal lives. The video, shared via a quote tweet, immediately went viral, accumulating over 3.7 million views in a frighteningly short window of time. The reaction from the broader internet was swift and unforgiving. Without verifying the source or the context, detractors and rival fandoms seized the opportunity to attack. The discourse quickly descended into personal insults, with some online users mocking Jin's appearance and leaving cruel comments suggesting that the hypothetical restrictions on dating were irrelevant because no one wants to date him anyway. It was a stark reminder of how quickly misinformation can fuel toxicity in the digital age. However, the narrative was corrected almost as quickly as it had spread. Korean-speaking fans and translators within the ARMY community immediately stepped in to provide the accurate context. They clarified that Jin was never discussing romance, dating, or interpersonal relationships. Instead, in his trademark self-deprecating style, he was joking about the physical pressures of being an idol. He was discussing the rigorous expectations placed on maintaining a slim physique and was poking fun at his own weight gain in comparison to his bandmates, who are known for their intense gym regimens. The conversation was about dieting and the struggle to keep up with physical standards, a topic far removed from the fabricated controversy about dating bans. This digital skirmish occurred against a backdrop of immense significance for the music industry. The noise of social media could not drown out the massive news confirmed by Big Hit Music. BTS is officially returning. The agency has announced the release of the group's fifth studio album, titled Erarang, scheduled for March 20, 2026. The choice of title is profound. Erarang is Korea's most beloved folk song, a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage asset that speaks of separation, longing, and reunion across a mountain pass. It is a poetic metaphor for a group that has endured a multi-year hiatus due to mandatory military service and is now crossing the mountain to reunite with their listeners. The album is merely the prelude. The comeback plan, which has been meticulously teased since 2025, includes a massive world tour set to kick off in April 2026. This marks the group's return to large-scale live performances, re-establishing the digital and physical infrastructure that connects them to millions of fans worldwide. As the countdown to March begins, the misunderstanding regarding Jin's livestream has largely been resolved, serving as a minor footnote in a much larger chapter of resurgence. Yet, this incident serves as a lens through which we can view the complex and often misunderstood journey of Seok-jin. To the casual observer, he is the worldwide handsome, the member quick with a joke, the one who blows kisses to the camera and brings levity to every interview. But beneath the polished veneer of the superstar lies a story of quiet struggle, immense pressure, and the burden of being the eldest in a phenomenon that grew larger than anyone could have predicted. Jin's entry into the world of K-pop was not paved with the typical intentions of a trainee. Unlike his bandmates who began as underground rappers or street dancers, Jin was a student of acting. He was scouted on the street, quite literally for his appearance, a moment that would define his early narrative but also haunt his artistic development. In the early days of BTS, while the other members contributed beats, lyrics, and complex choreography, Jin was often relegated to the background, burdened with the label of the visual. For years, he carried a silent insecurity, often referred to by fans as a form of imposter syndrome. He was the eldest brother, the Hyung, expected to lead and care for 6 younger men, yet professionally, he often felt he was catching up to their natural musicality. He had to learn to dance from scratch, training his body to move in ways that did not come naturally, practicing for hours after the others had finished. The criticism he received in those early years was often sharp, targeting his vocals and his dancing, disregarding the hours of invisible labor he put in to match the synchronized perfection BTS is known for. He coped with this pressure through humor. Jin constructed a persona of extreme confidence, declaring himself handsome at every turn, using laughter as a shield. It was a brilliant defense mechanism. If he praised himself first, the insults of others would sting less. He became the mood maker, the one who would embarrass himself to lower the tension in the room for the younger members. He cooked for them, drove them to school, and absorbed the emotional weight of their collective anxiety, all while hiding his own doubts behind a windshield wiper laugh. But the mask occasionally slipped, revealing a depth of emotion that many critics failed to see. The turning point for many observers was the release of his solo track Awake, and later, Epiphany. In these songs, Jin dropped the facade. He sang about not being able to fly like the flower petals, referring to his bandmates, about his fear, and ultimately, about the radical act of self-love. Epiphany became an anthem not just for fans, but for Jin himself, a public declaration that he was worthy, not because of his fame or his face, but simply because he existed. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes with being the pillar of a group. When the discussions about military service began to swirl around BTS, the focus was invariably on Jin. As the oldest, the clock was ticking loudest for him. 4 years, he lived with the uncertainty of his future, facing questions about enlistment in every interview, carrying the anxiety of the group's potential hiatus on his shoulders. When he finally released The Astronaut before leaving for the military, it was a love letter to his fans, but also a goodbye that felt heavy with the fear of being forgotten. The military service itself was an equalizer. The global superstar became a soldier, earning respect not for his high notes, but for his discipline, eventually becoming an assistant drill instructor. It was a period of silence where Seok-jin the person had to survive without Jin the idol. It was a time of stripping away the makeup, the stage lights, and the noise, leaving only the man. Now, in 2026, he stands on the precipice of a new era. The mistranslation that sparked this recent news cycle is ironic because it attempted to paint him as restrictive and controlling, when his entire career has been defined by his generosity and his desire to make people smile. When he joked about his weight on that live stream, he was trying to be relatable, trying to bridge the gap between the idol on the screen and the fan watching at home. He was showing his humanity, that he, too, struggles with diet, with body image, with the pressure to be perfect. The cruelty of the internet is that it took a moment of vulnerability and twisted it into a weapon. But the resilience of his character is that he does not let these moments define him. Jin has spent over a decade proving that he is more than a pretty face, more than a visual, and more than a mistranslated quote. He is a vocalist with a silver voice who can silence arenas. He is the brother who held BTS together when they were close to breaking. He is the artist who taught a generation that loving yourself is a journey, not a destination. As Erarang approaches and the world tour dates are finalized, the noise of the detractors will inevitably fade. What remains is the music and the man who creates it. The nasty comments and the false accusations will be washed away by the wave of support from millions who have seen his true character. Jin returns not just as a returning soldier or a K-pop idol, but as a symbol of endurance. He has crossed the mountain pass of uncertainty, walked through the valley of scrutiny, and arrived at the other side. Still smiling, still singing, and still undeniably a champion of his own heart. The countdown is on, and for Seok-jin, the best is yet to come.